These videos will be for January 9th, January 10th. We're looking at the trigonometric sum and difference formulas. Last class we used these three formulas. There's really 6 formulas because they're condensed. But we used these 3 formulas to calculate exact values, for example, sine of pi over 12, cosine of 5 pi over 12, things like that. Today we're going to use these formulas to verify identities and also solve equations. That's our 2 objectives here. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and do this one, give you time to work on that, and we'll go from there. If you have cosine of pi over 2 minus x equals sine of x. We know this, we actually showed this last semester by graphing, doing transformations, and this is one of our co-function identities. Well now, excuse me, because we have something plus or minus inside of our function like this, 2 things subtracted together, what we can now do is use a formula, use these 2 values, like for example, make pi over 2 our alpha, let x be our beta, plug those into our formula, simplify, and we should get sine of x. That's the idea. We're verifying an identity. So let's try it out. So we can say that cosine of pi over 2 minus x. Again, we treat, because pi over 2 occurs first, we treat that as an alpha. So we're using this formula, because it's the cosine formula, but instead of alpha, you'll put pi over 2. So it becomes cosine of pi over 2. Cosine beta here is x. Alright. Now, we subtract here. Inside our function, it's minus. Minus is on the bottom. So when we go here, we use what's on bottom. So what's on bottom here is the addition. So we will use addition plus sine of alpha. Alpha here is pi over 2 times sine of x. Now from here, we should be able to simplify it. Cosine of pi over 2 minus x, that's going to equal. Unit circle, always good to have. Cosine at pi over 2, if you look at pi over 2 and figure out the cosine value, this becomes 0. Cosine of x, we don't know. It means cosine of x, we can leave that. Plus, if you look at sine at pi over 2, sine at pi over 2 is 1. Let me put that in parentheses. Times sine x. And from here, 0 times anything is 0. So this actually will go away. So we're, cosine pi over 2 minus x, that's going to be equal to positive 1 times sine x. But we know that 1 times anything is itself, so this is just equal to sine of x, which is what we have right there. So we can use the formulas, simplify, get to a value, get to another expression and verify these identities. That's the goal. Let's try it. I'm going to get you set up and let you prove the rest of it. So again, we're trying to show that this equals negative cosine of x. So we can say that sine of x minus pi over 2, similar thing. Now we're using our sine formula. Alpha in this case is our x. Beta is pi over 2. So this would become sine of, instead of alpha, we put in x. Cosine of beta, because beta here is pi over 2. Since we're doing subtraction, subtraction's on bottom, we go over here. On bottom is subtraction. And if you simplify all of this, which I want you to do that, try that on your own. Pause it, try it on your own. You should end up with negative cosine. Okay? All right. Tangent. If you want to pause it here and try tangent on your own, that's fine. Try it. I'm going to go ahead and put in the formula and go from here. Alpha in this case is alpha. It's the first thing. So we can keep alpha alpha. And beta is going to be 3 pi. So I'm going to say this is beta. Now let's plug it into the formula. Tangent alpha, positive here, positive there. We stay on top. So it's going to be plus tangent of 3 pi over. Now, since it's positive on top here, what's on top here is minus tangent alpha times tangent of 3 pi. Okay. Now in class, if you look on your unit circle, in class we talked about that 3 pi does not fall on our unit circle. So what we have to do is try to figure out what is coterminal with 3 pi. And what we discussed is what's coterminal with 3 pi would be pi. So on the side I'm going to say we know that tangent of 3 pi is equal to tangent of pi now we want to try to figure out what is tangent at 3 pi. Well, we know it's tangent at pi. Tangent we know is sine divided by cosine. So if you're at the pi coordinate here, sine at pi is 0, cosine is -1. 0 divided by -1, 0 divided by -1 is 0. So when we come back here to our formula, tangent of alpha, that stays. But now we know this is 0. Tangent of 3 pi is 0. We just showed that. Tangent of alpha stays. Tangent of 3 pi is 0. Okay. Now, from here what we can do is say tangent of alpha plus 0, that's tangent of alpha. Here in our denominator we use PEMDAS. So before we can subtract, we have to multiply. Tangent of alpha times 0, this would become 1 minus 0. 1 minus 0 is 1. And we get tangent alpha. Okay. So that's what we would get. So, try this one. This one's tricky. I'm going to let you try it. I'm not going to give you any tips or clues or anything like that. What you should end up with is negative sine beta, though. If you try it, you should end up with negative sine beta. Check it, see what you end up with. If you have questions about that, let me know. In class, in person, through email, whatever you want, that's fine. I'm going to stop this video here. On the back, we'll talk about how we can use these types of equations or these formulas to help solve equations.